wanted to talk a little bit about where we're at now and where we're moving with legislation in your leadership of the Senate. And of course, the subject of the day, and has been for a while, has been the state's response to COVID-19. We've seen significant kickback in our part of Ohio associated with the restrictions and what's happened to businesses. And I mentioned to you before, you gave us all a lot of hope last year when you wrote to the governor about the effect of the coronavirus restrictions on small businesses. I know you've had a lot of communications with the administration since then. And just recently, a piece of legislation that came through the Senate, SB 22. Could you tell our viewers more about that and the response associated with it?
Yeah, in Senate Bill 22, which there's joint sponsors. One is Terry Johnson, who's a doctor from Scioto County. And I think it was important to have Terry on there because, you know, when you go to talk about these things, people say, well, you're not a medical professional, which, by the way, the governor isn't either.
Right.
We all take advice from experts. I tried many cases through the years where I had an expert witness who was a medical person or other experts. So, and then Rob McCauley, of course, represents Putnam County. Brilliant young lawyer, did a great job in the last General Assembly trying to shepherd through a number of these bills and issues that were that dealt with this matter. And so Rob and Terry have done a great job in the first really about 4 or 5 weeks here. So Senate Bill 22 is pretty fundamental. Borrow a line from Speaker Cupp, it's really just a historical anomaly that Ohio does not have legislative oversight of emergency powers of the governor. Most states do, and we just never did it. And a lot of times you don't do things until it becomes a problem, right? So, you know, what we have in Ohio right now is a governor, any governor, can declare an emergency, and they get to decide when the emergency is over, and they can put out any orders they want during the time of the emergency. Well, that's not the way democracy works.
In the first place.
And it shouldn't. So that's why most states at some point have done something like this. So at its fundamental premise, that's what Senate Bill 22 is about. It's about the legislature being able to step in, the direct elected members, and it's not one legislator or half a dozen, it's a majority of the legislature, but it's about them stepping in and exercising that prerogative. Because, and I've said this many times, this was a part of our floor debate, you know, you can think Governor DeWine did a great job, a bad job, or anything in between, and you should still be for this vote. You should still be for this. And we put it on the floor a couple weeks ago. Again, Rob in particular did a great job shepherding the language and explaining it to our members. And it was unanimous in the Senate among Republicans, which we couldn't quite get to any of those numbers in the last GA. And so it's now in the House, and there's been some negotiations. This is Tuesday or Wednesday, March 5th, I think, right? Third? Oh, okay, a couple days ahead.
That's right.
And I think the House is going to pass out Senate Bill 22 shortly, if not this week, then next week. It's my intention to concur on that. I've asked Rob and Terry to negotiate an item that our members will be comfortable concurring on, and it appears to be headed in that direction. The governor has said he's going to is going to veto it. He's confirmed that privately to me a couple of times, and it's my intention that the next scheduled session after the governor vetoes it to schedule it for an override vote in the Senate, and then we'd go to the House and we'd go from there.
Yeah. I think that is the following that we have in our social media in particular has been not only the biggest issue, but the idea that the legislature speaks and the governor vetoes it, that the legislature should proceed to the point of overriding it and actually making that the law. That's incredibly popular, I think. And I think, as you mentioned, even statewide, this is hard to argue against. What if the party roles were different? What if it was a different type of thing happening where the governor was exercising that power? I think different people would look at it.
Sure. Well, I asked in a press conference, you know, imagine the person who you would least likely want to be governor, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. And they have unfettered emergency powers and they decide when the emergency is
Right,
over.
exactly.
It's just bad public policy. And, so we need to change it, and that's
Right.
what we're gonna do.
That's great. Whenever people tell us, we want to see our politicians do something,
Mhm.
this is doing something. This
Right.
makes a difference.
Well, yeah, and again, we didn't get this done at the end of last year. One of my sort of first priorities is I don't wanna argue about health orders for 6 months or
Right.
9 months, or what we're doing with county fairs, or is it 10 o'clock, or,
Yeah.
you know, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this, we're gonna set the policy. I think, now, we're gonna have to go through this veto override business, and it takes 90 days but the first opportunity that the legislature gets, we're ending the emergency.
Okay.
Now, maybe the governor will do that before we get there, so we didn't have to, who can say?
That wouldn't be a bad